We're here at the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame in Waco, Texas, to announce episode 10 of the Texas Generals, presented by the Texas Division of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Hi, I'm Johnny Anderson, and in episode 10, we'll be profiling General Benjamin McCulloch, who's enshrined here at the Hall of Fame, along with Lawrence Sullivan Ross, who we profiled in episode 6. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, be sure and give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.
Benjamin McCulloch was born in Rutherford County, Tennessee, on November the 11th, 1811, the seventh of 12 children to Alexander McCulloch and Frances Lenore McCulloch, the daughter of a prominent Virginia planter. The McCulloch family had once been a prominent family in North Carolina before the American Revolution, but Alexander had wasted much of his inheritance and couldn't afford to educate his sons. Benjamin's father was described as a wanderer, and the family moved around from North Carolina, Alabama, and finally settling in Dyersburg, Tennessee, where they were close neighbors to Davy Crockett, who had a great influence on young Ben. In 1835, after being defeated in a congressional campaign, Crockett headed for Texas. After 5 years of farming and hunting, Ben agreed to follow Crockett to Texas and to meet him in Nacogdoches on Christmas Day. Ben's brother Henry went with him, but they arrived in Nacogdoches late. Ben talked Henry into returning to Tennessee, and Ben left alone to follow Crockett to San Antonio to help defend the Alamo. But a case of the measles prevented him from reaching San Antonio before the Alamo fell. McCulloch joined Sam Houston's army as it retreated to the east, and at the Battle of San Jacinto, Ben commanded one of the famed Twin Sisters cannons, donated by the citizens of Cincinnati and the only Texas artillery at the battle. For his service, McCulloch won a battlefield promotion to first lieutenant, but he soon left the Army and became a surveyor around Gonzales and Seguin and joined the Texas Rangers as a first lieutenant in John Coffee Hayes' famous Ranger Company, where he gained the reputation as an Indian fighter. In 1839, McCulloch was elected to the House of Representatives for the new Republic of Texas. During the campaign on October the 6th, 1839, Reuben Ross, standing in for McCulloch's opponent, Alonzo Schweitzer, challenged McCulloch to a duel. The two faced off with rifles at 40 paces in a field just north of Gonzales. Ross, a trained duelist, shot McCulloch in the right arm, a wound that would leave him permanently crippled. In response to Comanche Chief Buffalo Hump's Great Raid of 1840, on August 12, 1840, at the Battle of Plum Creek near present-day Lockhart, Texas, McCulloch distinguished himself as a scout and commander of the right wing of the Texas Army. In 1842, McCulloch decided not to stand for re-election and returned to surveying and rangering. He played a major role in the scouting and fighting against the Mexican Army during Adrian Wall's invasion of 1842. McCulloch stayed in the Ranger Company that would become the core of the army that Texas planned to use to invade Mexico, the Somerville Expedition. But it was so poorly managed that Ben and his brother Henry, who had rejoined him, left the Rio Grande just hours before the rest of the Texans were captured at Mir. At the outbreak of the Mexican War, McCulloch raised a company of Texas Rangers that would become Company A of Colonel Jack Hayes' 1st Regiment Texas Mounted Volunteers. He was soon named Zachary Taylor's Chief of Scouts and gained national prominence when one of the Rangers in his company, Samuel Reed, wrote a popular history of the campaign, The Scouting Expedition of McCulloch's Texas Rangers. In September 1849, McCulloch caught a case of gold fever and left Austin for California. Although he failed to strike it rich, he was elected sheriff of Sacramento and served until 1853, when he returned to Texas and was appointed by President Franklin Pierce as the U.S. Marshal for the Eastern District of Texas. Aware of his lack of education, McCulloch spent most of his time, though, in Washington, D.C., studying military science. In 1858, he was appointed one of 2 peace commissioners to negotiate an agreement with Brigham Young and the Mormon elders to end the hostilities that were later to become known as the Utah War, fought over who would have jurisdiction over Utah. When Texas seceded from the Union in February of 1861, the Committee on Public Safety commissioned McCulloch a colonel and authorized him to demand the surrender of all federal posts in Texas. After a confrontation with General David Twiggs, who McCulloch had briefly served under after the Mexican War, Twiggs turned over the federal arsenal and all of the Union property in San Antonio. McCulloch went to his friend Samuel Colt and ordered 2,000 of his new 1860 cavalry revolvers for frontier defense. The 1860 model would become known as the McCulloch Colt. McCulloch was commissioned a brigadier general in May of 1861 and assigned to command the Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, where he established alliances with the Cherokees, Choctaws, and Creeks. After winning the Battle of Wilson's Creek near Springfield, Missouri, McCulloch's division anchored the right wing at the Battle of Pea Ridge, also known as Elkhorn Tavern, on March 7, 1862. McCulloch's troops overran an artillery battery and drove the enemy from their position. At about 10:30 in the morning, McCulloch rode forward through some thick underbrush and was shot from his horse and died instantly. Some accounts of General McCulloch's death attribute it to a sniper in Company B of the 36th Illinois Infantry named Peter Pelican, who took credit for the shot, but according to his aide, John Henry Brown, there was so much shooting going on that it was impossible to determine who shot the general. Brown also reported that the general was wearing a suit of black velvet in that he detested uniforms, wasn't carrying a sword due to the crippling injury that he sustained during the duel in 1839, and was armed with a Colt 1860 revolver that was engraved Ben McCulloch, presented by the inventor. General McCulloch was buried at the Texas State Cemetery on Republic Hill. He never married, and when his mother Frances died in 1866, she was laid to rest next to him.